Today, we've got questions on Vatican II, pirates, Franz Joseph, and Charles gives us his thoughts on a Native American Catholic monarchy in the United States. Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with a peripatetic Charles Coulombe.
Peripatetic, you mean because I'm leaving?
Yes, coming back home.
Back home, crossing the ocean once more, like our fathers did before.
Exactly.
Leaving the old world for the new, in search of the whatever it was.
Freedom. The word's freedom.
Okay, that's not it. There's something else. Oh, I know. Christmas. I'm coming home for Christmas. You know, this will be the first time I've been home for Christmas in the States, in LA, since the year of our Lord, 2019.
Really? That's way back I felt like you came back. Maybe you just weren't here during Christmas. You were.
I wasn't here during Christmas. That's the thing.
Wow.
I was here last year. I was in LA at the build up to the Christmas season, but I was in LA from November 15th to December 15th.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's true because we really haven't done a Christmas episode in front of the tree in the studio. So
Quite a while.
it's been a while. Wow. Well,
So the 2020, 2021, 2022. 2020 and 2021, I did Christmas here. 2022, I was in the hospital.
right. That was really bad. I remember that.
That was, yeah. And then 2023, I did Christmas here. And, I'd be lying if I told you I'm not going to miss it. Because here, we do the 12 days. We do Christmas as a big deal, then New Year's, and then the Epiphany is a big deal. And that, I'm sorry to miss all that. And I'm going to miss all of my friends in Trumau. You know who you are. You Terex, you DeMeos, you Colossus, you know who you are. I'm going to miss you all very, very much. But on the other hand, I will be back for Christmas with the friends and family and for my youngest niece's wedding.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. So you're not the only one who gets married. Other people get married.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be good to have you. Those Terex have been hogging you, to be honest. I'm going to sound off on this. Yeah, that's right. I went there.
You're saying the Terex are hogging me?
Yes, that's right. Correct. Share the wealth. Sharing is caring.
Oh, well, that is true. Well, firstly, all right, let's look at this. Father Terek and Katie are really the heart and soul of this place. I mean, they really keep it going. He's the chief chaplain. He's, an amazing individual. All right. Then you've got young Uri, his son, his oldest son, who's 19, and Basil, who's now 17. Now, I have to admit, they remind me a lot of my brother and me. It's true. I have a tremendous amount of affection for them because of that. But wait, there's more. There they are. Now, how can you say a large family like that would be hogging me? I mean, Antonia, Teresia, the two oldest daughters, then Catherine, Anna. Johnny is 12 now, Maria, and Elizabeth is 5. And I was here when Elizabeth was born. So they become like a second family to me. And I really can't have you saying they're hogging. I mean, that would be like saying, oh, when you get here, the Coulombes are going to hog you at Christmas.
You have to be careful of foreign influence, though, okay? Like America, we always have these mechanisms in place. It's dangerous.
Yeah, but Katie's not foreign. She's American.
Has she been vetted? I don't know.
By whom? Kamala Harris? I don't know.
Okay, fine.
But,
You get a pass.
but I will miss Christmas with them. I admit it. But on the other hand, the boys, maybe Father Uri, will greet me at my Krambambuli, at my fraternity's Krambambuli, the night of January 17th when I return.
What kind of event is that? It sounds like a dish or something.
It is, oddly enough. It's not a dish. It's a hot rum and wine punch that's set aflame. And there are all sorts of ceremonies around it. And my fraternity is putting this on. As it happens, the very night I return. So I arrive at Vienna at 7, and then I've got to get in a car or something, Bolt, Uber, or something like that, and immediately head into town, put down my luggage, and put on my decca and my sash, and begin the celebrations. And the Krambambuli song is a lot of fun, but unfortunately, the only words I have memorized are the chorus, which goes Krimbim bim bumbuli krimbambuli, which is fairly easy. But there are many, many German verses, none of which I remember, though they pass out song sheets, so that won't matter. What I remember is the single French verse. Toujours fidèle et sans souci, l'ordre du Krambambuli, Krimbambambuli, Krimbambuli.
How did this start? So this is a drink, and then people started singing about the drink?
Yeah.
And that's a fraternity thing. That's with your specific fraternity.
Well, not just mine. I mean, the Krambambuli is generic in Austrian fraternities, possibly German, although there they may call it the Feuerzangenbowle.
So, tell us about this drink. How do we recreate it?
How do you recreate? Well, that's a good question. Let's find out. Krambambuli drink.
Also, while
recipe.
we're at it, how do you spell the word?
You spell it Kram, Kram, BAM, Bam, Buli, BULI, Krambambuli. Well, I see a number of different now, according to Wikipedia, it originated in Belarus, so that's interesting. It says it's a Belarusian alcoholic mixed drink or cocktail that typically consists of red wine and various kinds of liquor, including gin, vodka, or rum. There are many different recipes. Well, there are, and that's...
It sounds weird to mix those.
Oh, you'd be surprised. They are delicious. And they're set aflame. Some people add tea, red wine, cinnamon sticks. It says boiling water, tea leaves, red wine, cinnamon sticks, cognac. You get the idea.
That sounds interesting. Okay.
Here we go. German Christmas beverages, Krambambuli, fire tongue bowl, and glühwein. So this version, 2 bottles dry red or white wine, 1 cup granulated sugar, 1 pound cube sugar, half cup dark rum or arak, heated, a bottle of unchilled champagne. And you heat the wine but do not boil. Pour into thick ceramic bowl and stir in granulated sugar until dissolved. This is it. Put a metal grate over the bowl and place cube sugar on the grate. Heat rum or arak, ignite, and pour while burning over sugar. Most of the sugar is melted to the wine. Add champagne and ladle into punch cups. Makes about 24 servings. So that's Krambambuli.
Wow.
The Krambambuli song Uh, well, as it says here, uh, Krambambuli is a German student song that sings the praises of the eponymous Krambambuli, a type of mulled wine. The singers here enter an inn and there pass up food in favor of Krambambuli, their favorite drink. To the singers, this drink is so enjoyable that anyone who hates it must be offering an insult to God, who, in his beneficence, has gifted mankind with such liqueurs. Krambambuli was composed by Christoph Friedrich Wedekind in the 18th century. Uh, it is here performed by Erich Kunz and the Vienna State Orchestra. So, yeah, I recognize these words. The Krambambuli is the name of the drink which is preserved with us. It is a very effective remedy if we suffer evil. In the late evening and the early morning, I drink my glass of Krambambuli, Krambambuli, and so on. You get the idea.
All right.
And just to make things better for you, because I try to help. Let me see if I can get a picture of a ceremonial, because it's extremely ceremonial. Let's not get forward. Perfect. If I can find anybody in uniform, we got something. But if not, then great. Okay. This is from the Hilaria in Enns. Let's see. Where did I put you? Where hast thou gone? There you are. Now, chat. There you go. That's what it looks like, pretty much.
Oh, okay.
You'll have a couple of people, the heads of the evening in the uniform of the fraternity, and then everyone else sings and drinks along.
Let's touch on that a little bit. You said something so interesting. You said it's very ceremonial, and
Yeah.
as you say that, I mean, I don't have a wide range of experience with quote unquote ceremonial drink. Can you talk about that a little bit in terms of like what are there other ceremonial drinks and what are they attached to? And I don't know, that's just kind of a different concept to me.
Tom and Jerry. But
Well, that's okay.
Well, I mean, there really is a sort of similar to the Tom and Jerry. It's not like the Krambambuli where you've got the people in uniform and they say certain things, and there's certain songs that are necessary for the event. But even the preparation of it is a ritual, because you soak the sugar. You've got the grating over the bowl. You soak the sugar with rum, and then you set it aflame, and the whole thing is very much ritualistic. And of course, you've got the flaming bowl, and you pour, you ladle flaming liquid into cups and so forth, and they get passed around, and it's quite nice.
Do any other drinks come to mind that have this sort of intricacy, or again, is ceremonial in this way that you know of?
The Feuerzangenbowle, which is the German version. It's a different drink, but it's very similar in a lot of ways. Yes, Café Diable, which is made at Antoine's in New Orleans, which is coffee, and I forget what goes into Café Diable. Usually, any drink that requires flame is ceremonial. And for that matter, something like steak Diane, it's always done tableside, is a ceremony. Let's try Antoine's. Café Brûlot Diabolique. That's Café Brûlot, I meant, not the Diable. Café Diabolique. was invented at Antoine's restaurant in the late 1880s. Oh, there's a picture of it. Beautiful. Was invented at Antoine's restaurant in the late 1880s by Jules Alciator, the son of the restaurant's founder. According to Philip Collier's Mixing New Orleans, Alciator was inspired by French bon vivants who would drown a sugar cube in cognac and place it over an open flame before extinguishing it in a cup of hot coffee. Today, you can still find the drink in New Orleans at restaurants including Antoine's, Galatoire's, and Arnaud's. The preparation of Café Brûlot is something like a magician's show. Outside of the flambeau at a Mardi Gras parade, there's nothing like it. All ingredients are carefully combined tableside in ornate bowls. After adding the alcohol, the waiter lights the concoction and, to the delight of the guests, proceeds to ladle the flaming liquid into cups. If you try your hand at the recipe below, have a fire extinguisher handy, just in case, or stop by one of the places that specializes in this concoction. So the Café Brûlot Diabolique, you have 2 sticks of cinnamon, 8 whole cloves, peel of 1 lemon, 1½ tablespoons sugar, 3-ounce brandy, 3 cups strong black coffee. Put the cinnamon, cloves, lemon peel, sugar, and brandy in a fireproof bowl that heat on an open flame. When the brandy is hot but not boiling, bring the bowl to the table and ignite with match. Use the ladle to stir and pour the liquid around the bowl for 2 minutes. Pour the hot coffee into the flaming brandy and ladle the mixture into demi-tasse cups.
I see.
And these are all kind of good things for this, for this time of year. I could mention the burn suppers that they have in Scotland in late January.
Yeah, as I'm kind of embarrassed because there actually is one sort of ceremonial drink, not ceremony in terms of making it, but ceremony as in it's part of the ceremony, which is our Slovak Christmas Eve dinner, where we start with the oplatki, which is the wafer bread, kind of similar to the Eucharist, and we dip it in honey, extend it to someone. The person next to you, and then after that we have a shot glass of whiskey that everybody takes a sip. Even if you're a kid, just wet your lips. If you're a teetotaler, just have it touch your lips. And usually it goes all the way around. Usually there's a good amount of whiskey left, and my dad would make the sacrifice and down the rest of the whiskey. But that was the tradition. Is it my understanding that it's a fairly common tradition in Eastern Europe?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've done that at the Tarek table, where you're beating me up for having been. Interestingly, though, because they're Eastern Rite, Western Rite oplatki are very much like the Eucharist, like the thin. But the Eastern Rite oplatki, the one used the Eastern Rite is very much like their Eucharist, so it's thicker.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The Eastern Rite, wow. Our oplatki is pretty thin. I mean, I'm looking at Catholic Company's website, and they're showing me the Polish oplatki, and it's pretty thin.
Yeah, it's like the Western Eucharist.
Oh, okay.
But the Byzantine Rite Eucharist is square and it's thick.
I see.
And so is their oplatki.
I see. Like,
but it's the same.
It's like a crouton.
No, but it's sort of square and like.
I see. Okay,
but yay thick.
I see what you're saying. That would be interesting.
It is, of course. I was never at the Franchini house for Christmas Eve dinner, so I was never I wasn't invited or anything, so I never actually had your style of oplatki, but I actually that's not true, because you've given me oplatki on several Christmas Eves. But only when I dropped by. I wasn't there for dinner because it was for family and not hangers on and lowlifes. But it's okay. I'm better.
Well, you Coulombes are so clannish that I figured we didn't want to make waves.
Let me tell you, just because every Christmas Eve I had a 5-hour drive up to the keep, you know, it we may be proud, we may be guard our honor jealously, looking down on the valley people, but
The valley people.
well,
Wow.
that's everybody who lives, beneath the keep.
Right.
You see, it's this extreme pride is how we make up for our utter lack of effect in any kind of day-to-day affairs.
Well, that's a system. I hope it's working out
Um,
well for you guys.
who wants to be with those people anyway? Lock the doors. Yeah, but no one's coming anyway. Lift up the drawbridge. It's Christmas Eve. We want none of the interlopers. But, we're too remote for anybody to make their way here anyway. Quiet.
All right. Anything else before we get started?
Well, yeah, we do have the remainder of Advent. Next week will be our Christmas show. And then the following week will be our New Year's show.
All right.
And ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be closing down another year with you. It's great to see another Christmas. However you celebrate Christmas, whatever customs you either inherited or adopt or whatever, we'll say more along those lines later next week. But enjoy this time. It's very, very important that you take this time out from the horrors and enjoy it. Really, really enjoy it.
Patrons, send in those Christmas questions if you have any. If you're not a patron but you want to send it, get your question asked, become a patron for as low as $5 a month. Get access to the pre-show too. We had another really good pre-show. It's actually 50 minutes because Charles was really on a roll. So a lot of extra content there. All right, let's begin.
All right.
Let's start off with a question from Nate, who has a question on Vatican II. He says, I have a theory about Vatican II I would like both of your opinions on. I recently reread Sacrosanctum Concilium, the document on liturgy. I used to think Vatican II was an ambiguous council, but now my views have changed quite substantially in a favorable way towards the council, at least how it is presented in the documents. It's clear that Sacrosanctum Concilium never called for land to be abolished, nor did it call for the kinds of abuses in the Novus Ordo today. For example, communion in the hand, Eucharistic ministers, the priest facing the people, etc. This was all added later when the new Mass was created by Bonini and his fellows. These things being the case, my theory is that this document never called for the creation of the new Mass, at least in its common form. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with you. There's an old joke about Vatican II that it's one of the few cases on record where the spirit killed the letter. And that was certainly true of Sacrosanctum Concilium. Some of the other documents, especially doctrinal ones, had kind of time bombs in them, ambiguities that people would run with. But Sacrosanctum Concilium was not like that, really. And it was really ignored. The only thing they got out of it was that there could be changes made to the Mass with the permission of proper authority without ever defining what that authority was or what that really meant. And through those little loopholes, they ran. But you're quite right. They ignored the letter, which required the retention of Latin. It required the retention of Gregorian chant, and nowhere envisaged a whole new Mass. So, but this was Benedict XVI's complaint the day that he left office, when he said that the Vatican II that there were three Vatican IIs. The Vatican II of the documents, the Vatican II of the theologians and the Vatican II of the journalists. And the latter two are what came to dominate.
Yeah. When I read the documents, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, it was interesting. I'll just go over the one line that really stuck in my head. I felt was very representative of a lot of the ambiguities. And it was, I'm paraphrasing here, but the line, it was a single sentence which basically communicated that Christ is present in the priest, but especially present in the Eucharist. That's the message conveyed in that sentence. And I thought, wow, there's a lot of weighing required to sort of parse that sentence, right? Like, okay, you're putting Christ's presence in the priest and in the Eucharist together, saying Christ is present in both. So there's that. But then you're saying especially. So it's like, okay, so what does that mean? Right? And so obviously
Yeah.
people ran with it in a certain direction, focusing on Christ on the people rather than Christ in the Eucharist. So to me, that was just really the example that sort of sticks in my head in terms of the ambiguity.
Well, when we're touching on that, there's a quote from Vatican II, which I like because it's, how do I put it? Yeah, here we go. This is from Lumen Gentium, and I made the point in this particular article, the documents of the Council radiate an almost giddy optimism for rapprochement with the secular world that at times appears almost incoherent. So it is that Lumen Gentium 29 decrees that, quote, because the human race is joining more and more, because human race today is joining more and more into a civic, economic, and social unity, it is that much the more necessary that priests, by combined effort and aid, under the leadership of the bishops and the Supreme Pontiff, wipe out every kind of separateness, so that the whole human race may be brought into the unity of the family of God.
Tampa Tobacconist says, what does Sir Charles think of the moral life of Franz Joseph I of Austria? Everything I've read about him suggests he was a man of outstanding moral character. Does Charles agree? Has anyone considered opening a cause for his canonization?
Well, for the most part, I'd agree. There's always been the question of his friendship with Katharina Schratt, who was an actress, not a hugely beautiful one. She's often referred to as his mistress, but the exact nature of their relationship is unknown. Most people believe that it was platonic, and that she sort of took the place of Empress Elizabeth in terms of someone he could talk with. I mean, all they did was go walking in the gardens, you know, and that was it. But that would be one area where people would probably shoot at him. Other than that, though, and as I say, the evidence, such as there is, seems to imply that it was platonic. Because, of course, he was very much in love with his wayward wife even after she died. Not to say anything bad about Empress Elizabeth, but she really was the Princess Diana of the 19th century. But I don't think anyone would think of canonizing him. I mean, I don't know anyone over here who's even thought of it.
Yeah.
And I'm all for canonizing Habsburgs, don't get me wrong, but I don't think anyone would regard him as a saint.
All right. Adam has an interesting question with a little bit of an intro. He has some lyrics for us here. He says, "All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken. A light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that was broken. Squanto again shall be king."
Oh.
That was, I think this is Adam's first question. He really jumped in with a bang. I love that. So his question is, what are your thoughts on a Native American Catholic monarchy in the United States? We all know that Squanto was baptized, so I think his descendants would be legitimate successors to the throne. Alternatively, I would also support the claim of Saint Kateri Tekakwitha's descendants.
Well, the problem there is severalfold. Firstly, we don't know if they have any. Secondly, I mean, St. Catherine certainly had no children. I don't know about Squanto. Secondly, the American Indian tribes hated one another with a passion, and some of that remains today. I can't imagine the rest of the American Indians going for either a Mohawk or a Wampanoag monarch. I just don't see it. No, I think if we were ever to have a monarch in this country, he would have to descend entirely or partly from the royal houses that built our country. Bourbon, Habsburg, Stuart. I mean, it's just the way it is. A couple of days ago, we had December 13th or 12th, I think. We had National Guard Day, which is the anniversary of the founding of the National Guard in 1636. And who was it founded under? Charles I.
Okay.
We have a number of National Guard and other militia units that go all the way back to the colonial days, to the good old colony days when we lived under the king. And the same is true with various of our courts in New Mexico, Puerto Rico, the 13 colonies, California, etc. There are all sorts of bits and pieces left over from our varied monarchical past. But if you were to have a king of America, he would need to somehow be able to pull them all together.
I see. So the Native American Catholic monarchy is more of a reach, where you're saying there's bits and pieces that can be fused together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, bear in mind, it's not like Mexico or Peru, where the Inca and Aztec emperors have descendants who are now part of the Spanish nobility. The largest organized polity we had in North America, the Mound Builders, collapsed about 400 or 500 years before the Europeans came. I mean, maybe if we could find the emperor of the Mound Builders, we'd have something.
Interesting. That was the biggest community, huh? The Mound Builders.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yep. They have different names to them now, the Mississippian culture and things like that, but the Mound Builders is a good enough generic name.
All right. Nate has a bunch of questions relating to sailors and pirates. He says, hey, fellas, I have 3 questions surrounding the method and folklore regarding sailors in the sea, which I've always been enchanted by since I live in New England. Firstly, what are some popular legends in medieval and or classical folklore surrounding the sea?
Oof. Yo ho, a pirate's life for me. Did not drink up me hearties, yo ho. Drink up me hearties, yo ho. Yo ho, a pirate's life for me. 15 men on the dead man's chest. Yo ho, and a bottle of rum. Drink and the devil had done for the rest. Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. Well, anyway, there were quite a few. Of course, there was the story of St. Brendan the Navigator, and the story of Maelduin, both Irish Gaelic stories of visiting islands to the west of Europe.
I thought that was true. St. Brendan
No,
the
yeah,
Navigator?
yeah. But
Okay.
as you'll see if you read it, there's a kernel of truth to it, but there are a lot of wonders that they discover, which possibly did not occur as. So that's one thing. The idea of the Isles of the Blessed, the Isles to the west, you know, High Brazil, Antillia, the island in the center of the Atlantic, where 7 Visigothic bishops fled with their flocks when the Muslims invaded Spain, and they settled the island of Antillia, and of course it was considered that would be a great place to actually get to. They never did, but the Antilles are named after Antillia, so that's kind of an interesting thing. There's, of course, the Flying Dutchman, and there are all sorts of ghost ship legends going back forever. Sea serpents, the things from the slithy depths.
If you could rule on sort of how these got their beginnings, or perhaps the reality of them, that would be good too.
I don't know. I mean, certainly some of the giant squids and octopi are amazing and can do strange things, and there are very, very big ones. I mean, we don't know all the animals on land. We can't claim to know them all at sea. So the kraken, and there are sea monster stories going all the way back to Scylla and Charybdis in the days of the Odyssey. So it's they remember that once you left land, you were at the mercy of the sea, and if something went wrong and you couldn't fix it on shipboard, you were toast. Leaky ship. Well, if you don't find an island, if you don't find someplace, you're in a bad way. And there are, of course, all sorts of legends about islands as well.
All right, let's. Okay, there's two other folklore items relating to sea, which are some of my favorites. Let's go with the Bermuda Triangle first. What's the sitch with the Bermuda Triangle, Charles?
Wow, it's very mysterious. Is it UFOs? Is it a time warp? Is it lost Atlantis reaching out? Who's to say? Who knows? Who's to tell? I don't know. I've read a good deal about the Bermuda Triangle, and it was very popular in the 70s when all this stuff was very popular, the aftermath of the age of Aquarius. And I really have no opinion. I don't know. I mean, I've seen all sorts of stuff pro and con, and I'm not in a position to decide. All I know is that I won't go sailing through the Bermuda Triangle in a small boat.
I mean, you've hasn't there been bits or pieces of information where you thought, "Wow, this is really impressive," and
Yeah. Oh,
others
yeah. There sure are, and then there'll be other bits and pieces trying to pour cold water on it. I just don't know enough to have a real opinion. I mean, let's go to Wikipedia source of all truth. All right, let's look up Bermuda Triangle.
And why is it a triangle? I mean, a triangle. It's so interesting that I guess it's a very
Oh,
defined perimeter.
Well, it's a defined perimeter. It goes basically from Bermuda to Miami to Puerto Rico and back up to Bermuda Triangle. Uh, the earliest suggestion of unusual disappearances in the Bermuda area appeared in an article written by Edward Van Winkle Jones of the Miami Herald that was distributed by Associated Press and appeared in various newspapers on 17 September 1950. 2 years later, Fate magazine published Sea Mystery at Our Back Door, a short article by George X. Sand that was the first to lay out the now familiar triangular area where the losses took place. Sand recounted the loss of several planes and ships since World War II, the disappearance of Sandra, a tramp steamer, the December 1945 loss of Flight 19, a group of 5 U.S. Navy torpedo bombers on a training mission, the January 1948 disappearance of Star Tiger, a British South American Airways passenger plane, the March 1948 disappearance of a fishing skiff with 3 men, including jockey Albert Snyder, the December 1948 disappearance of an airborne transport DC-3 charter flight en route from Puerto Rico to Miami, and the January 1949 disappearance of Star Ariel, another BSSA passenger plane. Let's just click on Flight 19. The investigation.
So it just disappeared. It was a plane that just straight up disappeared.
They've got in '86. Another thing was mistaken for it. As of the 2020s, no trace of the 5 TBM Avengers and the PBM Mariner and the 27 missing aviators have been found. The most likely conclusion is that the Avengers ran out of gas and ditched at sea, and the PBM experienced a mid-air collision. Strange. Don't know what to tell you. And they've got criticism of the concept. Larry Cushy, author of the Bermuda Triangle Mystery Solved, 1975, argued that many claims of Gaddis and subsequent writers were exaggerated, dubious, or unverifiable. He revealed a number of inaccuracies and inconsistencies between Berlitz's accounts and statements from eyewitnesses, participants, and others involved in the initial incidents. He noted cases where pertinent information went unreported, such as the disappearance of round-the-world yachtsman Donald Crowhurst, which Berlitz had presented as a mystery despite clear evidence to the contrary. So, and on and on and on it goes. So and obviously their refutations, and etc. So I don't pretend to know, but it's interesting.
All right, and then the last one we'll go over, my favorite one, is in terms of folklore involving the sea, is the lost city of Atlantis.
I was born there.
So
no, I was born in Atlantic City.
Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And I wasn't either. I was born on another island in the Atlantic.
What island? Long
Manhattan.
Island?
Manhattan.
Okay. All right, Charles.
Well, I mean, this is something, too, that fascinated me from an early age, I'll admit. The lost continent of Atlantis. And, the comic books were always talking about it. Aquaman, the Submariner, both had roots to Atlantis. In the Tarzan books, La, the Queen of Opar, the lost city in Africa, descended from the Atlanteans. There's all this stuff. Lost Atlantis. The idea of a highly developed civilization vanishing without a trace beneath the Atlantic.
Well, one of the
Exciting.
one of the aspects of this now, Solange Hertz, one of the authors we published, she straight up thinks the lost city of Atlantis is real. And one of the aspects, I guess, of this argument that it was an antediluvian culture before the flood
Right.
culture, and it went away. I guess that's part of this argument here. But basically, it was almost like, I guess, perhaps a water version of Sodom and Gomorrah, more or less.
Yeah.
You know, that's what she is pitching. What do you think, Charles? Take a chance on this one. Don't say, "Oh, I don't know." Could it be possible? How about this? Let's start with this. Could it actually be possible that there was a lost city of Atlantis?
I would think so, yeah.
Okay, so we're not going to be like modern scholars. We're going to outright rule it out.
No, we're not going to rule it out.
Okay. So you're just going to leave it there?
I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there where it's been all my life and a lot earlier.
So,
I mean, you had Ignatius Donnelly, right? His big thing in 1872, I think it was, on the lost island of Atlantis.
yes.
You had Colonel James Churchward, who wrote about Mu, or as other people call it, Lemuria in the Pacific. He claimed that Atlantis was in fact a colony of Mu. Mu, the motherland of mankind. Who knows? I don't, but it's all interesting speculation.
And so a lot of this, part of what's looked at is Plato in his writings.
Yes, because
Could you talk
Plato
about
told
that?
the story. Okay. Pardon me. Plato told the story of how Solon, while he was in Egypt, was told the story of Atlantis. And that's where it comes from. The first mention of Atlantis. Let me see. To the Timaeus and the Critias, described as a naval empire that ruled all western parts of the known world. And Timaeus, the only primary sources for Atlantis are Plato's dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. All other mentions of the island are based on them. The dialogues claim to quote Solon, who visited Egypt between 590 and 580 BC. They state that he translated Egyptian records of Atlantis. Plato introduced Atlantis in Timaeus, written in 360 BC. For it is related in our records how once upon a time your state, meaning Athens, stayed the course of a mighty host which, starting from a distant point in the Atlantic Ocean, was instantly advancing to attack the whole of Europe and Asia to boot. For the ocean there was at that time navigable, for in front of the mouth, which you Greeks call, as you say, the Pillars of Hercules, there lay an island, which was larger than Libya and Asia together, and it was possible for the travelers of that time to cross them into the other islands, and from the islands the whole of the continent over against them, which encompasses that veritable ocean. In other words, if this is true, they could go to America. For all that we have here, lying within the mouth of which we speak, is evidently a haven having a narrow entrance, but that yonder is a real ocean, and the land surrounding it might be rightly called in the fullest and truest sense a continent. Now, in this island of Atlantis, there existed a confederation of kings of great and marvelous power, which held sway over all the island and over many other islands also in parts of the continent. And then in the Critias, he talks about the fall of Atlantis, and according to Critias, 9,000 years before his lifetime, a war took place between those outside the Pillars of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar, and those who dwelt within them. The Atlanteans had conquered the parts of Libya within the Pillars of Hercules as far as Egypt, and the Egyptian and the European continent as far as Tyrrhenia. and it subjected its people to slavery. The Athenians led an alliance of resistors against the Atlantean Empire, and as the alliance disintegrated, prevailed alone against the empire, liberating the occupied lands. But afterwards, quote, but afterwards there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, all your warlike men in a body sank into the earth, and the island of Atlantis in like manner disappeared in the depths of the sea. For which reason the sea in those parts is impassable and impenetrable, because there is a shoal of mud in the way. And this was caused by the subsidence of the island.
So, this isn't just like a light mention or maybe a paragraph. This is a huge body of writing, right?
Oh yeah, and then I mean it's a big chunk.
So I guess the whole argument
You,
is, I mean, what was the intent? I mean,
well,
do
the
people say this
intent,
is fiction, or is
yeah,
it just
yeah.
Plato
It's,
with pseudoscience or pseudo history?
they say no. They say that Plato was actually telling a parable, is what they claim,
Okay.
and that of hubris in governance, because obviously the Atlanteans overreached themselves, and they were defeated, and then the whole island sank.
What do you think, Charles?
I don't know. I mean, I would like to agree. I would like to think there's something to it. I'm always happy with all these things. I wouldn't be very happy with the Bermuda Triangle, but I'd certainly be happy if there was something to the story of Atlantis.
Hmm.
But who knows?
All right. A couple more questions from Nate. He says, "What is or was the devotional life like of Catholic sailors? What kind of spirituality do they bring to the table?"
Well, they were very Marian, and they loved Our Lady's Star of the Sea. The song Ave Maris Stella was the anthem of Catholic sailors. It's very, very Marian. Um, and then they also, of course, were devoted to the great patron of sailors called St. Elmo, St. Erasmus, who is most famous, of course, for St. Elmo's fire, which they call the electrical discharge that appears on ships. Sailors tend to have a lot of superstitions. Red sky in the morning, sailor take warning. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. Um, the and again, they tended because it was so dependent on things beyond their control. Um, because they were so dependent on things beyond their control, they tended to be very devout in terms of prayer. They were also very much aware that death lurked everywhere for a sailor. One reason why sailors had the gold earrings was to pay for their burial.
I didn't know that. That's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because anything could happen. And if they didn't go down to Davy Jones' locker, if they died in some port, they had um, a ready-made payment for their burial in wherever.
Hmm. Wow. So it wasn't just a fashion statement. That's interesting.
No, no, it was an investment.
Hmm. Okay. Anything else? Any other notable things? That's such an interesting question in terms of their spirituality of sailors.
Well, again, they were very prayerful because, I mean, they were also very profane and very, they were a real mixed bag. But like so many people in different professions that require, like farmers or hunters, that require the cooperation of nature in areas that simply can't be controlled. Uh, uh, they had a very particular kind of devotion in that sense.
All right. Final question for the episode. What is the real history of piracy in the period we usually associate with it, 17th and 18th centuries? How much truth is there in our modern stereotypes of pirates?
Yo ho, a pirate's life for me. Well, uh, the 18th century was dominated, the 17th and 18th centuries was dominated by several world wars that occurred in, the War of the Grand Alliance, 1676 to 89, I think, something like that. The War of the Spanish Succession, which I think was 1702 to 1713. The War of the Austrian succession, which is 1745 to 1748, and then the 7 Years' War. And then there were a number of others. Now, one of the standard things that people would do in those days is the governments would do is they would hire out privateers, and these privateers were basically civilians with ships and weapons who, would apply what was called a letter of marque, by which they were authorized to prey on the shipping of enemy powers. And this privateering, of course, legally only lasted as long as the war did. As soon as the war was over, the letters of marque were canceled. But a lot of people found from privateering that it was only one step to piracy. Why prey upon only the vessels of one or more countries when you could prey on them all, including your own? So that it was, I think, the many wars in the Age of Sail that gave rise to piracy in that sense. Now, it was also the fact that a great deal of wealth was carried back to Europe, especially Spain, for the Indies, gold and silver and all sorts of other goodies. And during the wars, the British privateers had gone after this quite happily. But when the war finished, uh, a lot of privateers didn't see any reason why they should stop going after Spanish ships, and so they continued. And there was the thing too that some pirates, if they made a lot of money, could become respectable, like Henry Morgan, who ended up as governor of Jamaica. So very often the success of a pirate was measured in escaping the noose. Captain Kidd, whom you may remember, had been a privateer who turned pirate. And he was probably the most famous of that kind. Then there was Blackbeard the pirate, who you'll remember. He was so bad he ended up meeting his end in 1719 in the Battle of Oracoke Inlet. But he had a heavily armed ship called Queen Anne's Revenge.
Where did most pirating or privateering occur? Was there any of that in the English Channel, or is that too close and too frequent, and it's just kind of risky?
There was some, but not a lot. It was mostly in the Caribbean, the Spanish Main, that is the northern coast of South America. On the high seas, the Atlantic, eventually the Pacific, the Manila galleons people would go after, taking gold from the Philippines to Acapulco. The Indian Ocean became a real big pirate hangout. And in fact, there were two independent pirate republics. One, the Ile Sainte Marie on Madagascar, and the other, the Ile de la Tortue in what's now Haiti, Tortuga Island. Um, the New Providence, Nassau in the Bahamas, was a big pirate hangout until they appointed a governor named Fletcher with a mandate to clear them out. And clear them out he did. Everybody thought he'd be like the other governors who could be paid off, but he wasn't. He wasn't.
How do you clear out pirates?
You execute them en masse. And one of the things that the navies of, especially after 1790, in the Western Hemisphere, the great navies, the British, the French, the Spanish, etc., the American, began coordinating their attacks on the pirates. And they, in the end, they destroyed them. I mean, that kind of piracy. We have pirates now in the Indian Ocean, and the East China Sea used to be a big pirate thing. I think it still is. But, I mean, that's why, for love or money, you wouldn't get me to take a yacht through the East China Sea or in the Indian Ocean. I wouldn't even take a cruise liner through the Indian Ocean. I'll fly, or you could put me on a naval ship. But one of the things that they used to do to combat the pirates was disguise a warship as a fat merchantman, laid low in the water because supposedly laden with all kinds of goodies. Pirate ship would come up. They'd run up the naval jack and then open fire on her. But they make a point of going very slow. Oh, I do hope no pirate shall see me. I'm trying to take home my cargo of gold, silver, and precious gems. Oh, I'm going so slow. Oh, how I wish I could pick up some speed and escape the hands of pirates. And then up comes the pirate ship. Arvi Boko. Lay avast. Oh, I don't think so. Open fire. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, that was a mistake. Now, I loved pirate lore when I was a kid, and I wanted to be a pirate. Have a parrot and all that. But they were not nice people.
Did they So let's go after some of the other stereotypes and address if they're real or not. So was the tradition of walking the plank a real thing?
It sure was. Aaron Burr's daughter Antonia, her ship was taken by the pirates, and she was made to walk the plank.
Did they put something on? Did they put something on your feet, like to weigh you down, or are you're just swimming?
That's enough. You're swimming in the middle of nowhere. You're gonna get tired if the sharks don't get you.
Yeah.
And and they would abuse the female passengers horribly, and sometimes the young male ones. You didn't want to be a cabin boy on a pirate ship, believe me.
What about the classic stereotype? I mean, perhaps the biggest stereotype, the skull and crossbones.
Yes, that was definitely there. I mean, they weren't uniform. There were many different versions of them, but the skull and crossbones was very definitely used by many, many pirates.
Doesn't that's interesting though, because that means there's a pride there, whereas perhaps, I mean, why don't you just run someone else's flag? Why not just be
Oh, they
discreet.
often no, they often did. They
Okay.
often would, but then when they came up against the ship, that they were going to go after, run up the Jolly Roger and then give him a taste of grape shot. Ha ha! Army buckos.
I see.
This time 2 weeks from now, we'll be drinking in Maracaibo. Now blow it to smithereens.
What about I'm going to assume the rum thing more or less is true because of just how prolific it was in the Caribbean. It's a plentiful
Well,
source.
I mean, rum was used by everybody because it was the only drink, unlike water or wine, that would keep forever. And I mean, as late as the early 70s, the Royal Navy still got the rum tot every day. And what they would do to fight scurvy is they would combine it with fruit juices, with citrus. So, I
Interesting.
mean,
So it's like a
to
Mai
this day,
Tai.
there's, well, not exactly, but that's the inspiration. There's a kind of rum today they call Pussers, Pusser, which is made according to the recipe of the old Royal Navy rum.
Oh. What about let's go into some of the more I'm thinking of obviously the Pirates movies. What about parlay? Is there some sort of pirate code?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, parlay? That's a thing.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean they had a code. They had a code, and of course the gosh, I can't think of the word. The quartermaster would generally be in charge of the ship until they were going into combat, and then the captain took over. And the pirate captain, he was more about leading his men in battle than about navigation, although obviously it would help if he knew navigation.
All right, I have one last one, which would be, perhaps are there any notable figures who actually had a hook for a hand, or a peg leg, or a parrot?
Lots had all three.
Really? So that was a true stereotype. There's no embellishment.
No, I mean, when you lose a hand, what do you replace it with? You got to bear in mind that you're fighting with swords, with pistols, and with cannon. And so it's easy to lose a hand and a leg. And if you survive, what do you do? And the parrots, of course, they were just pirates. I mean, sailors have always loved parrots.
Okay.
Ah, Vatican II, Vatican II. Ah! What?
Okay. Okay. That's. I think I've exhausted the stereotypes of pirates. So, any final words for the episode, Charles?
Yes, I'll be home for Christmas. You can count on me. Please have snow, well, maybe not that, and mistletoe, and presents under the tree. Christmas Eve will find me where the love light gleams. I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dreams.
All right. With that, what is it if it's Monday?
Off the menu.
But what about the soul you save?
It may be your own.
See you next week, everyone.
Merry Christmas, Happy Advent, Mazel Tov. Take care.